The last time I said away, you guys didn't respond. But we always say away to our comrades, and we count you guys in the fourth estate as an important ally and comrades in this struggle for justice, in this struggle for accountability. But we're also aware of the inherent contradictions within the fourth estate in Zimbabwe. In that, for example, the dominant ownership has become partisan, where an entire media conglomerate throughout the country is journaling for and on behalf of partisan interests. That is worrying. But it's also important as we engage with you to say, how do we achieve the kind of transformation that this country needs for us to deal with illicit financial flows? I want to build on what Ngubani was talking about. Oh, my name is Fambai Ngirande, and I'm a comrade. But I also work with the Southern Africa People Solidarity Network. So my take is more region. So Ngubani was saying, as the Second Republic came in place, the president put out an amnesty. Say, those who have stolen money, you can return it with no legal consequence. That didn't work out, isn't it? You may also want to know that in 2014, the Chinese themselves, they went on an ambitious, they called it a fox hunt. And they were looking for 1.2 billion of illicit financial flows, money taken out from the Chinese economy. So you can imagine the entire Chinese government in a globally paraded initiative, fox hunt, to retake Chinese money where it's gone. From 1.2 billion, they only were able to recover less than 300 million. The Nigerians as well, they went out to look for money that Sani Abacha stole. He was stealing money by the billions, Abacha. It took them 12 years, but out of the billions that Abacha stole, they were only able to get 265 million or so. And to get that 265 million, they would have put in a lot of money also to chase up after that money. What is that telling us? For me, it's telling us that it's notoriously difficult to stand up against capital. The second thing that is telling us is that illicit financial flows is not new. The only new trend right now is that it's happening much faster because economies are digitalized, so you can move money very fast. It's the other new thing, apart from it's moving faster, is that the scale of resources that are being stolen is phenomenal. So you want to then say, it's nothing new. It's something that has always been happening as long as there's been capitalism. It was happening nakedly in the times of colonialism, in that they're really shifting money out with no consequences because those were their colonies. But now we're in a neo-colonial framework in which 70% of the stolen money, it's actually not stolen because some of these things are very legal. Huh? But what we do know that the people that are benefiting 70% of the money that is being produced in poor countries is the private sector. So we also need to understand that one, it's not new. It's only just escalated. The second thing we then need to understand is that it's systematic. It's structural. Global capitalism is designed to facilitate that. If you can imagine that global capital can frustrate the Chinese, the second largest economy, they can frustrate them from following up after their money, it's really because that's how global capitalism works. Which brings me to the next point, which says, if we are realistic in realizing that global capitalism is designed and structured in such a way, we call it neoliberalism. What it does is to extract without consequence, to maximize as much profit. So you're taking as cheap as you can and selling for as much as you can. That's global capitalism. And you're insulating that practices with legal instruments, with institutions, with systems that really ensure that outside of a fundamental transformation of how capitalism works, we will always have illicit financial flows. Which then says for poor countries such as us, what's our option within that framework? Our option really is prevention is better than cure. The least we can do is to prevent the extraordinary, limitless extraction of our resources at our expense. But it must first begin with an understanding of who's really stealing and stealing from who. If you look at it well, realize that really everyone with some sort of power is stealing. We can change hands to call it corruption, to call it theft, to call it illicit financial flows. But the bottom line is the owners of the resources are not benefiting as much as those that are in control of capital. So you have this hierarchy where the blue-collar guys in corporates, they're taking 70%, followed then by those in power, with political power, who just make money. It's called rent-seeking behavior, isn't it?
Yeah.
They don't produce anything. You make money by signing, isn't it? You sign a debt, you sign in an investment, and that's how you make your money. Those follow suit, isn't it? And then as we keep going down the line, there's always someone who's just trying to motivate capitalism to benefit as much as they can. So what we can only do is to say, at source, beginning in the village where they're taking lithium, we need to put checks and balances, measures that ensure that as local as possible, we can prevent the mass stealing of our resources. So prevention must be better than cure. But then if you then look at it, why would someone who's benefiting from signing checks, from getting loans, you just get a loan on behalf of Zimbabwe, and within that loan, you end up you're a millionaire. What incentive do those people have in challenging global capital? Because if you look at it, as I said, the corporates steal much, much more than our politicians. Everyone is stealing, but the corporates are worse. So we're saying we need to go as local as possible to start dealing with illicit financial flows. But as you can see in our country, there's really no political appetite for things like devolution, which empowers your chief to at least monitor and say, guys, how can 10 trucks leave this community and we're still living in huts? You know, we've normalized it, as we see. You know, our economy will make the most money from mining and from agriculture. Yet the poorest Zimbabweans are in mining areas and in rural areas where there's mining and agriculture. But our richest people are in Harare, where deals are signed. But I'm just saying there's very little political will for transformation, because the only way you're going to deal with it is to start local, to make sure that the community is refusing with their things, or that the ownership by communities of their resources is protected and guaranteed, that their ability to benefit from their resources is protected and guaranteed. But we realize because there is a rent-seeking in our economy, no one's talking about devolution anymore. No one is talking about community share ownership trust. We dismantle them. In fact, what's happening right now is that we are deregulating as much as we can. Deregulation means is you're taking out regulatory mechanisms that contain capital from its excesses. So in this country, bankers can move a lot of money without accountability, and this is very legal. Corporates can move a lot of money without accountability. And if you look at it, that's Mangunja's problem right now. He just doesn't know how much money is operating in this country. Because guys have said, let's informalize, deregulate these things, you know, ad atora. As long as you can maximize capital, you will be protected, isn't it? So where normal central bankers will say, if us to determine the price of the rate, we'll say maybe this month the manufacturing needs this amount, the farmers needs this amount for winter wind. He can't do that because the guy who's really spending in our economy is weak now. He turns around and say, you hear, Atenga Mutkar Zemari, 3 million? 3.5. you can't then say trace a rate up because you don't know who's going to bring in money or who's going to take out money, when and how. Those are our problems. But the bottom line is the corporates, they're getting their deregulation. We are saying invest in Zimbabwe, we'll give you tax incentives, we'll give you special economic zone. You can pretty much do what you want. And we're saying the people they're stealing from are the owners of the resources. Let's not forget that, isn't it? So there's no political will for transformation. And if we agree that the way economics is structured in this global world, structured to facilitate what we're calling illicit financial flows, theft of resources from their rightful owners, you realize that what we need to push for is that political will for transformation. And for me, that's where the fourth estate comes in. You can only get political will to transform if there's a demand. Because why would someone forego politicians in Zimbabwe benefit, do they not? You're so guaranteed a benefit. Guys can actually afford to say, we'll give everybody, is that car worth 60,000? 60,000 for campaigning, those cars. Twin cabs. You can see that politics is an actual investment, political power in and of itself, which tells you that even if we have accountability as things stand, we'll get his report, her reports, you guys have been reporting, Gold Mafia is reporting, but in and of itself, that accountability won't do nothing up until we start talking about transforming our economy, locating economic power to the rightful owners of the resources and the labor. So you guys then are crucial in that we need the kind of information that can trigger people to seek the kinds of accountability that result in transformation, that stops corporates from looting, that stops pen pushers from signing deals that do not benefit us. And within that, you realize that it's journalism for the purposes of justice, for the purposes of political conscientization. And like I said at the first, our media industry in Zimbabwe is not really well placed for those purposes. Apart from the dangers inherent in showcasing these issues, but the actual structural limitations that your editor is just not going to let you do it. Because the guys who own your media houses are the ones that are embedded in the kind of economy that we have today. So we're in trouble. We really are in trouble. Comrade, I could speak forever, but I think that the bottom line is prevention is better than cure. We need to locate this fight against illicit financial flows at the lowest possible level, where communities can say, this mine has been there for a century. The colonialists stole from that money. The post-independent government stole from that. Now we're getting in Chinese to come steal again, but the school is the same, the road is the same, there's no clinic. Those are the people we need to talk to empower, to own those resources and refuse with them. But also on a more macro level, I find we have this Africa mining vision. We even have a progressive constitution. We even have an anti-corruption commission that's not arrested anyone so far. It just tells you that, accountability in and of itself is not really the solution. When it comes to Zimbabwe, we must be talking of political transformation, economic transformation. The community doesn't want a report. They want a fair share of their own resources. And that's the kind of economic vision we need to be pushing for. And that's the kind of conscientization, the kind of accountabilities that should come from independent, progressive journalism. You guys do a lot, but the limitations just undermine you. Away, my comrades, away. Quickly, I think my first point is to thank and encourage MISA. I think we need to keep investing in this idea of a pluralist and independent media. And I think we also need to recognize the shifting dynamics of the media business so that we can now see what other complementary media businesses can we invest in, so that especially as a generation, because there's a generational issue at play. If you can see the age profile in this room, our editors are not like Trevor, who own the outfit. They are also workers. Huh?
Yeah.
So we also want Ndamu there to own his own outfit and deploy it, properly, for strong independent journalism, and also to recognize that there's a shift also in the audience profile, including 5 million Zimbabweans in the diaspora, whom we need to engage more meaningfully. And that leads me to my second point, which connects this IFF issue and the diaspora. The real reason why IFFs are proliferating is really because those in power don't feel like that money is needed, not by the farmers, not by the artisanal and small-scale miners. Huh? They think those people don't need that money for their schools and their hospitals and their roads. However, they believe that, in fact, the 2 billion we then get from the diaspora, if you see it, gives our leaders the impression that these people will get by, even under these cruel and severe austerity measures that we're living in. So remember when we spoke about sanctions earlier, we were saying it's a double-edged sword. And the Rhodesians were prosecuting a war. They needed that money for war. So you see, the mining, same mining that we're seeing today, was being done, was it not, in the same extractivist model. But because the money was needed for a war effort and to sustain a welfare state, they could curb corruption. Same way with the Boers. They were cruel, but they were clear that you can't allow individuals to steal collective money. Huh? We need it for something. So that says, if you understand politics to mean who gets what, when, and how, our fundamental issue in Zimbabwe is that because our leaders are subsidized by 2 billion straight money that goes into households, the money for hospitals they can forego. You can afford to chase away all the nurses because these people will pay for private doctors. They have 2 billion coming into their households. I'm saying that to say we also need to engage the diaspora, but we also need to politicize this question, because we are saying this money is truly urgently needed by people, yet our leaders don't feel that demand because we have options. They can privatize. They are privatizing as much as they can, because they know you have money in your houses. You go to Mkuru, to your doctor, or to Mkuru, to your college. The state is just outside of that. All they are doing is extracting or facilitating extraction. That's an issue. If I would conclude on the need for, I'd say we need to do more to recover stolen assets, but we also need to close the door for continued IFFs. So recovering stolen assets, comrades, is important, because where's the money going? We're only seeing it in cars and big houses. Where's the rest of it going? So we need to invest more in recovering. We need to make it a political issue, even in these elections, to say all the money that's been looted over all these years, when we are having a trade deficit, yet the minings are vibrant. The artisanal miners right now, the tobacco farmers, doing a lot. Where is that money going? We need to put it on the political agenda. That money must be recovered. And with that, it says we need to challenge the capture of our institutions. Because, we have a 2/3 parliamentary majority, a militarized state. These guys, my comrades, if they want something done, it gets done. It's not happening. Yet we know, if you look at the figures, what we're importing and what we're exporting is not tallying. Where is that money coming from and where is it going? We need to stop. We need to recover stolen assets. That need to be on the agenda. And we also need to be clear as Africans and Zimbabweans that this crop of Chinese or other investors, they are not the first to loot our resources. Huh? It's been happening since Rhodes. They've been looting. And that tells us as a generation, we also need to put on the political agenda this issue of economic transformation. We need an economy that works for the local person, not for the leader in Harare, isn't it? So there's that transformational agenda if we're going to be serious about stopping IFFs and recovering our stolen wealth. And these white people, we must tell them also, they must pay us back. Imagine how many years they stole during colonialism with no accountability. And we must also put them in perspective that truly, even with EITI, no matter how good it is, they just don't have the legitimacy to tell us because they started this game of stealing from us. And we have an obligation to transform our economies so that they work for us. The other point is about what needs to stop. He said it well. We have to stop giving the same people who steal from us tax incentives. Guys, it doesn't make sense. They're coming to make money, yet we give them incentives to stop paying us tax. That must stop. Our leaders must also stop signing binding arbitration agreements because they get an investment and the dispute resolution tells you you can't put them in court in Zimbabwe. You can only prosecute them in an arbitration space of their choice. It just doesn't work. Our leaders must just stop signing for those things. Again, we must capacitate our leaders, and capacitating our leaders speak about dismantling this patrilineal politics that we have. We are not employing the best minds to run our affairs, although this is a super mind in the ministry. But generally, because you don't feel that guys who are negotiating national deals have the adequate capacity to do so. Then the last point is to say the theft is so open because isn't we said illicit financial flows, what you generally do is you deflate the value of exports and you inflate the value of imports. But everyone who can see can say, Kokana Americans are good in Zimbabwe, taka importer, 3 million. Why is it that Zimbabweans are taka exporters 1 million? Where's the other 2 million going? For you guys to know that you just need to be adept at understanding how market prices on the global scale work so that we can do the math. Tobacco Zimbabwe when we have millions of tobacco farmers, yet we only have a small cartel of tobacco contractors who take all the money at the expense of the millions. So we need to check, because the figures will never lie. What we import versus what we export will tell us how much money is being stolen from us. But otherwise, the struggle really is, let's recover the assets and let's stop. Prevention is better than cure. Let's put it on the political agenda that the theft and looting of our resources must stop, and that the people's wishes to transform this economy so that it works for them must be honored.